The A-Team's iconic black and red van is instantly recognizable to millions, but behind those turbine wheels and that bold red stripe lies a treasure trove of surprising secrets. From fake vans that weren't GMCs at all to continuity nightmares that still haunt eagle-eyed viewers, the production history of this legendary vehicle is stranger than fiction. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the A-Team's GMC Vandura van. Fact 1. Multiple imposter vans were used throughout the series. If you thought Bachelor of Arts Baracus drove the same GMC Vandura through every episode of the A-Team, think again. The production team pulled off one of television's boldest vehicle switches by secretly substituting completely different vans throughout the show's 5-season run from 1983 to 1987. While the iconic black and red GMC logo was prominently displayed on the regular A-Team van, producers didn't hesitate to swap in Chevrolet vans and even Ford Econoline vans that had been painted to match the signature look. These imposter vehicles appeared in various scenes, and most viewers never noticed the difference. The switch was particularly brazen when you consider how recognizable the van was supposed to be. The GMC Vandura featured distinctive styling elements including the red stripe, turbine wheels, and that unmistakable grille with the GMC badge front and center. Yet in some episodes, eagle-eyed fans have spotted Ford Econoline vans standing in for the real thing, with red hubcaps quickly painted on to simulate the original red turbine mag wheels. The production team even used these substitute vans for major stunt sequences where the vehicle would surely be totaled, which explains why they needed budget-friendly replacements rather than destroying expensive GMC Vanduras. The reason behind these substitutions was purely practical. Stunt coordinator Craig Baxley confirmed that the show used at least 8 different vans during production, with 2 assigned to the first unit and 6 to the second unit. When dangerous jumps or crashes were required, cheaper substitute vehicles took the hit instead of the genuine GMC vans. This cost-saving strategy allowed the show to maintain its explosive action sequences without breaking the bank, even if it meant fans were sometimes watching a Ford pretending to be a GMC. Fact 2. The van's color fooled everyone, including toy manufacturers. Ask anyone who watched the A-Team what color the van was, and most will confidently tell you it was all black with a red stripe running along the side. This widespread belief has persisted for decades, but it's actually completely wrong. The iconic van was never entirely black at all. The upper section above the red stripe was metallic gray, while only the lower portion beneath the stripe was painted black. This two-tone color scheme was clearly visible on screen throughout the show's entire run, from 1983 to 1987, yet somehow the misconception that the van was solid black became the dominant memory for millions of viewers. What makes this color confusion even more remarkable is that the mistake wasn't limited to casual fans with fuzzy memories. Even official toy manufacturers who had access to reference materials and studio approval got the colors wrong when creating their miniature replicas of the van. Companies like Hot Wheels and Ertl produced A-Team van models throughout the 1980s and beyond, and most of these officially licensed toys featured an all-black paint scheme instead of the correct metallic gray and black combination. These toy models were approved by Universal Studios and sold in stores worldwide, which only reinforced the false impression that the van was supposed to be completely black. The error has proven incredibly difficult to correct because it became so deeply embedded in popular culture. Collectors and A-Team enthusiasts have pointed out the color mistake for years, but the all-black version remains the most common depiction in merchandise, fan replicas, and even in discussions about the show. The metallic gray upper section was clearly visible in every episode, yet television screens and memories somehow transformed it into solid black, creating one of the most persistent visual misconceptions in TV history. Fact 3. The disappearing and reappearing sunroof mystery. One of the most glaring continuity errors in the A-Team involved a sunroof that seemed to appear and disappear depending on which van the production crew grabbed for filming that day. Because the show used multiple vans throughout its run, some versions had sunroofs while others did not, and the crew apparently didn't worry too much about matching them up between shots. This led to jarring visual inconsistencies where the van would magically gain or lose a sunroof from one scene to the next, sometimes within the same episode. The most notorious example of this sunroof problem occurs in the Season 3 episode titled The Bells of Street Marys, where the continuity error is impossible to miss. During an action sequence, the character face jumps from a building and lands directly on top of the van, and in this exterior shot, the roof is clearly solid with no sunroof visible anywhere. The stunt was likely filmed using one of the vans designated for dangerous stunts, which typically didn't have sunroofs to maintain structural integrity during jumps and crashes. However, just moments later in the very same episode, the scene cuts to an interior shot where Face is shown climbing into the van through a sunroof that suddenly exists. The editing places these two contradictory shots so close together that even casual viewers could spot the mistake. This sunroof situation wasn't unique to that one episode but happened throughout the series whenever the production switched between their different vans. The show had separate vehicles for main photography and stunt work, and GMC had provided some vans with sunroofs for regular filming, while stunt vans were built without them for safety reasons. The production team clearly prioritized getting the shots they needed over maintaining perfect visual consistency, resulting in one of the show's most memorable continuity blunders. Fact 4. GMC mysteriously blacked out their own logos. During the first season of the A-Team, the iconic van proudly displayed bright red GMC logos in two prominent locations on the vehicle. One logo sat front and center on the grille where everyone could see it, while another GMC badge was positioned on the rear left door of the van. These logos were clearly visible throughout the early episodes, as the van crashed through gates, raced down streets, and served as the team's primary mode of transportation. However, something strange happened early in the second season that has never been fully explained. The production crew suddenly painted over both GMC logos with black paint, effectively hiding the manufacturer's branding, even though GMC was actively sponsoring the show. What makes this branding blackout so puzzling is that GMC didn't actually end their relationship with the show when the logos disappeared. The automotive company continued supplying vans to the production throughout the entire run of the series, and GMC still received credit listings at the end of every episode even after their logos were covered up. This arrangement suggests that GMC remained a willing sponsor and partner, yet for reasons that have never been publicly disclosed, someone made the decision to obscure the company's visual branding on what had become one of television's most recognizable vehicles. The mystery deepened in the show's final season when GMC apparently withdrew their sponsorship entirely, leading Universal Studios to completely remove the GMC insignia from the van, rather than just painting over it. But during those middle seasons, the painted-over logos created an odd situation where GMC was technically still involved with the show, but chose to keep their branding hidden from view. Whether this was a contractual dispute, a creative decision, or something else entirely remains unknown to this day. Fact 5. The 2010 movie van was a complete imposter. When the A-Team movie hit theaters in 2010 starring Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper, fans were excited to see the iconic black and red van make its big screen debut. However, what looked like a faithful recreation of the classic GMC Vandura was actually a total fraud. The movie production didn't use a GMC at all, instead opting for a 1994 Chevrolet G20 that had been customized to look like the original van from the television series. This switch might seem like a minor detail, but it represents a significant departure from the authentic vehicle that defined the show. The decision to use Chevrolet instead of GMCs came down to pure practicality, according to Rick Rasmussen, the picture car coordinator who handled the movie's vehicles. Since the film was shot primarily in Vancouver, Canada, the production team faced a serious problem finding enough GMC Vanduras in the area. GMCs simply weren't sold in large numbers in Canada, and the models from earlier than the mid-1990s had developed a reputation for poor longevity, meaning very few were still on the road in decent condition. Chevrolet vans, on the other hand, were abundant and much easier to source locally. The affordability factor also played a major role in choosing the Chevy imposters. Rasmussen noted that the trade-in value for these older Chevrolet vans was roughly $500 at the time of filming, making them incredibly cheap to acquire. He even commented that there was nothing special about these vans, suggesting that moviegoers wouldn't shed any tears when they watched them get blown up, torched, or crushed during the film's action sequences. The production needed multiple vehicles for stunts and filming, so finding cheap and readily available vans made much more financial sense than hunting down authentic GMC Vanduras. Fact 6. At least 8 vans were built, but only 4 were destroyed. Given how much carnage the A-Team inflicted on vehicles throughout its 98 episodes, You might assume the production went through dozens of vans during the show's 5-season run from 1983 to 1987. Surprisingly, the actual number of vans destroyed was far lower than most people would guess. Craig Baxley, who served as the stunt coordinator and second unit director for the entire series, revealed that the production built at least 8 different vans specifically for the show, with 2 assigned to the first unit for regular filming and 6 allocated to the second unit for stunt work and action sequences. Despite all the explosive jumps, crashes, and mayhem that the team's vehicle endured on screen, only 4 of these vans were actually destroyed during the entire production. This relatively low destruction rate is particularly impressive when you consider the type of stunts the show regularly featured. The A-Team was famous for its over-the-top action sequences where the van would jump over bridges under construction, crash through locked gates, or narrowly escape explosions. Baxley, who also worked on the Dukes of Hazzard where his father Paul Baxley handled similar duties, understood that major jumps typically spelled the end for any vehicle. He explained that anytime you do a significant jump with a vehicle, that usually marks the vehicle's final appearance, because the structural damage is simply too severe to repair and reuse the van safely. The production team's careful management of their vehicle fleet allowed them to keep the remaining 4 vans in rotation throughout the show's run, switching between them as needed for different types of scenes. This strategic approach to vehicle usage meant the iconic van could keep appearing week after week without the production constantly needing to source and customize new replacement vehicles. Fact 7. Bachelor of Arts' milk-drinking habit was a drugging mechanism. One of Bachelor of Arts Baracus's most memorable character traits was his refusal to drink alcohol, with Mr. T's character instead preferring to drink milk at every opportunity. While this detail seemed like an innocent quirk that made the tough guy character more wholesome and family-friendly, it actually served a very specific practical purpose for the show's writers. Bachelor of Art had an intense fear of flying, famously declaring, "I ain't getting on no plane" whenever the team needed to travel by aircraft, and his milk-drinking habit gave his teammates the perfect opportunity to secretly drug him with sedatives so they could get him on flights without his cooperation. This recurring plot device became one of the show's most reliable comedic elements throughout its run. In multiple episodes, Hannibal or another team member would hand Bachelor of Arts a carton of milk that had been spiked with knockout drops, and within moments of drinking it, the muscular sergeant would collapse unconscious. The team would then drag or carry his limp body onto whatever plane they needed to board. In one particularly memorable scene, Bachelor of Arts confidently tells his teammates that they won't trick him with knockout drops this time because he refuses to eat or drink anything they give him. Hannibal then casually offers him the last swallow of milk from a carton, and Bachelor of Arts' anger gets the better of him, causing him to grab the milk and drink it down before realizing he's been had yet again. The writers found countless creative variations on this drugging scenario over 98 episodes, including times when A thought he had outsmarted the team by switching his food with theirs, only to discover that the sedative was in the milk all along. This made Bachelor of Arts' wholesome preference for milk over alcohol into an unintentional vulnerability that his own teammates regularly exploited. Fact 8. The promotional vans were actually Chevys with GMC badges. While the vans used during actual filming of the A-Team were genuine GMC Vanduras, the 6 official promotional vans that toured the United States and Canada from 1983 to 1987 were completely different vehicles underneath their iconic paint jobs. Universal Studios commissioned a company called Hollywood Productions Incorporated to build these promotional vans, and instead of using GMCs, they started with 1979 Chevrolet panel vans and then went to extraordinary lengths to disguise them as GMCs to match the television version that millions of fans recognized. The rebadging process was incredibly thorough and detailed, going far beyond simply slapping a GMC logo on the front grille. The customizers replaced every piece of Chevrolet badging on the exterior of the vehicles with GMC equivalents, ensuring that anyone inspecting the vans at car shows or promotional events would see GMC branding everywhere they looked. But the attention to detail didn't stop at the outside of the vehicle. The team even changed the steering wheel emblems inside the vans from Chevrolet to GMC, maintaining the illusion even for people who got to sit in the driver's seat during special appearances and promotional tours. These 6 promotional vans were built to be as accurate as possible to the screen-used version in every other way. featuring the correct two-way radios mounted in the overhead control panel, 4 custom plush seats for each team member, and a full arsenal of prop weapons, including simulated shotguns and automatic rifles. The vans also received the signature exterior modifications like the heavy-duty grille guard, special alloy wheels painted black and highlighted in red, and BF Goodrich radial TA tires. One of these promotional vans was eventually auctioned in January of 2021 and sold for $84,000. Fact 9. One van ended up in a museum in northern England. Of all the places you might expect to find an original A-Team van, a small town in northern England probably wouldn't top the list. Yet that's exactly where one of the genuine vans from the television series ended up for more than 2 decades. The Cars of the Stars Motor Museum in Keswick, located in Cumbria, in England's scenic Lake District, displayed one of the 6 original vans used during the show's production from 1983 to 1987. The museum became famous worldwide for its collection of iconic vehicles from film and television, and the A-Team van was one of its star attractions alongside cars from James Bond films, Knight Rider and Batman. The museum was founded by Peter Nelson, a former dentist who started collecting famous movie and television vehicles after his classic MG was rented for a British film production in 1982. He purchased the Royal Oak Garage in central Keswick and converted it into a museum that opened to the public in May of 1989. For fans visiting the Lake District, the museum offered a rare chance to see authentic vehicles from their favorite shows, and the A-Team van drew particular attention because it was one of the few surviving vans from the actual production rather than a replica or promotional vehicle. The museum operated successfully for 22 years, but in 2011, the entire collection was sold to American property developer Michael Deser. He purchased not only the Cars of the Stars collection, but also the contents of the neighboring Bond Museum, which housed over 30 original screen-used cars from James Bond films. Deser relocated the entire collection to his Miami Auto Museum in Florida, where he established a permanent Cars of the Stars exhibition. This transatlantic move meant the A-Team van traveled thousands of miles from the English countryside back to American soil. Fact 10. The complete series DVD came packaged in a van replica. When Universal Studios released the A-Team, the complete series DVD box set in June of 2010, they created packaging that was just as iconic as the show itself. Rather than housing all 98 episodes in a standard rectangular box, Universal designed a limited edition collector's set that came packaged inside a cardboard replica of the famous black and red van. This three-dimensional packaging featured the van's distinctive red stripe, turbine wheels, and all the visual details that made the vehicle instantly recognizable to fans who had watched the show during its original run from 1983 to 1987 or discovered it through syndication. The box set contained all 5 seasons of the show spread across 25 discs, which could have created a storage problem for collectors with limited shelf space. However, Universal's design team solved this issue with a clever engineering decision. Instead of making the van stand upright, which would have been too tall for most entertainment centers, they designed the packaging so the van replica would lie on its side horizontally. This meant the cases inside were positioned sideways as well, allowing the entire package to fit comfortably on standard DVD shelves alongside other box sets without taking up excessive vertical space or requiring special display arrangements. Opening the back of the van replica revealed 5 individual keep cases, with each case containing a complete season of the show. The release was timed to coincide with the theatrical debut of the A-Team movie starring Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper, giving fans a chance to revisit the original series or discover it for the first time. The box set originally retailed for $149.98, but was frequently available at discounted prices, making the collectible packaging an attractive option for both longtime fans and new viewers. Fact 11. The van appeared in Ready Player One. The A-Team van made an unexpected return to the big screen 3 decades after the original show ended, appearing in Steven Spielberg's 2018 science fiction film Ready Player One. The movie, which celebrated pop culture nostalgia from the 1980s and 90s, featured the iconic van as one of many classic vehicles competing in a massive virtual reality race sequence set in a futuristic digital world called the Oasis. Among hundreds of famous cars and characters making cameo appearances, the black and red GMC Vandura stood out as a recognizable tribute to the beloved television series. In the film's race for the Copper Key, which takes place on a dangerous virtual track in New York City. The A-Team van can be spotted starting in the fifth row of racers. However, there's an immediate continuity error that eagle-eyed viewers might catch, as the van appears to jump from the fifth row to the third row when the race actually begins. The van is piloted by a Halo Elite, one of the alien warrior characters from the popular video game franchise Halo, creating an amusing crossover between two completely different entertainment properties. During the chaotic race, the van manages to cause some damage by wrecking one of the vehicles belonging to IOI, the villainous corporation that serves as the film's antagonist, with the impact sending a tire flying off the enemy car. The van continues racing through various hazards and obstacles, and in a later attempt at the race, it successfully jumps over bridge ramps, along with other surviving vehicles. However, the van's participation in the race eventually ends when it crashes somewhere off-screen during one of the subsequent hazard stages. The Halo Elite who piloted the van later reappears as a combatant in the film's climactic Battle of Castle Anorak sequence. Fact 12. The spoiler angle changed between different van versions. Among the many continuity issues that plagued the A-Team's fleet of vehicles, one of the most visible but rarely discussed problems involved the rear spoiler that sat on top of the van. The red spoiler was one of the vehicle's most distinctive features, adding to the aggressive, customized look that made the van so memorable to audiences. However, because the production used multiple vans throughout the show's run from 1983 to 1987, the angle at which the spoiler was mounted varied noticeably from one vehicle to another, creating an inconsistency that sharp-eyed fans could easily spot when watching different episodes back-to-back. This spoiler angle problem stemmed from the same issue that caused other continuity errors throughout the series. Each van was customized separately, and the aftermarket parts used to modify these vehicles were installed by different people at different times, meaning there was no standardized specification for exactly how the spoiler should be positioned. Some vans had spoilers mounted at a steeper angle, tilting more dramatically upward from the roof, while others featured spoilers that sat at a flatter, more horizontal position. The differences weren't subtle enough to go completely unnoticed, but they also weren't so extreme that casual viewers watching the show during its original broadcast would necessarily register the change as an error. During the original run of the series, when episodes aired once per week on NBC, most viewers didn't have the ability to compare episodes side by side or pause and examine the details frame by frame. The varying spoiler angles simply became part of the visual inconsistency that characterized the show's approach to its vehicles, similar to how the vans sometimes had sunroofs and sometimes didn't, or how the paint colors could appear slightly different, depending on lighting conditions and which specific van was being filmed that day. Fact 13. One promotional van sold for $84,000 at auction. In January of 2021, one of the 6 officially licensed promotional vans that had toured the United States and Canada during the 1980s went up for auction through worldwide auctioneers, giving collectors a rare opportunity to own an authentic piece of television history. The van, which was a 1979 Chevrolet that had been rebadged and customized to look exactly like the GMC Vandura from the show, had spent most of the previous 30-plus years in museum-like settings and was only occasionally brought out for special events and car shows. When the hammer finally dropped, the winning bid came in at $84,000, a substantial sum that reflected both the vehicle's cultural significance and its status as one of only 6 officially licensed promotional vehicles ever created. What made this particular auction even more meaningful was the decision to donate all proceeds from the sale to a charitable cause rather than keeping the money for private profit. The entire $84,000 went to the J. Cruz Education Center Career Coaching Academy, a nonprofit organization that provides career development services and coaching to K through 12 students and military veterans who are transitioning into civilian careers. This charitable donation aligned perfectly with the spirit of the A-Team television series, where the 4 main characters worked as soldiers of fortune, helping people in need who had nowhere else to turn. John Cruz, who served as the principal and auctioneer for Worldwide Auctioneers, described the van as an instantly recognizable and highly entertaining promotional vehicle that would be welcome at shows and events anywhere. The van was sold without reserve, meaning there was no minimum price that had to be met, and it was offered alongside 4 additional classic vehicles as part of a special auction event held at the company's home location in Auburn, Indiana. Fact 14. Mr. T's fear of flying made him more human. When the A-Team debuted in 1983, Mr. T was coming straight off his role as Clubber Lang in Rocky III, where he had played a completely fearless and intimidating boxing champion who showed no signs of weakness or vulnerability. The creative team behind the A-Team recognized that they needed something to soften Mr. T's image and make his character Bachelor of Arts, Baracus, more relatable and human to television audiences who would be watching him week after week. Their solution was to give the physically imposing sergeant a crippling fear of flying, creating an unexpected vulnerability that would become one of the show's most memorable and comedic elements. Mr. T himself understood exactly why this character trait was so important for the show's success. In a 2009 interview with Absolute Radio, he explained that the fear of flying was necessary for comic release, pointing out that viewers would see Bachelor of Arts as this big tough guy who could clear a barroom of 4 or 5 men in a fight, but then would be terrified to get on an airplane. This contradiction made the character more human and accessible, rather than just being an unstoppable force of nature. Mr. T noted that the timing of this decision was crucial because audiences had just seen him as the mean and intimidating Clubber Lang, so when he joined the A-Team, it was important to show that he could be vulnerable and afraid of something. The fear of flying became so convincing that many fans actually believed Mr. T himself was genuinely afraid to fly in real life. He later joked about receiving letters from concerned viewers who would warn him to watch out and not let his teammates put anything in his milk, showing just how effectively the character trait had resonated with audiences and blurred the line between actor and character. Fact 15. The van contained various gadgets that changed per episode. One of the most inconsistent aspects of the A-Team throughout its 5-season run was the constantly changing array of equipment and gadgets stored inside the van's cargo area. While the exterior of the vehicle remained recognizable with its signature paint scheme and modifications, the interior seemed to operate under completely different rules, with specialized equipment appearing and disappearing depending on what the plot of each particular episode required. The production team made no attempt to maintain any consistency regarding what technology or tools were actually supposed to be permanently installed in the van, treating the cargo space more like a magical toolbox that could produce whatever the team needed for that week's mission. In the episode titled Pros and Cons, viewers could see a mini printing press set up in the back of the van, allowing the team to create forged documents or counterfeit materials as part of their plan. This elaborate piece of equipment took up considerable space and would have been a permanent fixture if the show cared about realism, but it was never seen again in subsequent episodes. Similarly, in A Small and Deadly War, the van contained a sophisticated audio surveillance recording device that the team used to gather intelligence, yet this expensive and useful piece of spy equipment also vanished without explanation after that episode concluded. Hannibal's extensive disguise kits made appearances in various episodes stored somewhere in the van's interior, which made sense given how frequently the character went undercover using elaborate costumes and makeup. However, even these kits seemed to come and go rather than being a permanent feature. The production simply equipped the van with whatever props and equipment each individual episode's script called for, then returned to a more generic interior setup for the next week's adventure, creating a continuity problem that fans noticed but the show never bothered to address or explain.